Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back once again to Holy Plot. This is Liam, Jacob, and James, and we just finished Scavengers Reign, the whole thing. It's done. Last 3 episodes came out. We loved it. We're going to take it episode by episode here, hitting some of the main points we really loved, and then if you want to hear more of our more concise thoughts on the whole show, we have a season review up right after this. But to get into it, I think a good place to start is, full spoilers, by the way, but I think a good place to start is Sam's death. I think that's the thing that hit me the most in the first episode of this batch. What do we think about that scene, fellers?
Yeah, I feel like I was really glad they gave that moment some time. I know a lot of people were theorizing, myself included, that Sam and Cayman were going to kind of confront each other, and I was shocked how glad I was that didn't happen. I felt like giving him the time to have a peaceful, restful death was way more satisfying than him kind of being tortured. Because trust me, we're seeing plenty of that in these 3 episodes. So I was glad that he kind of got a restful, at terms, composed death instead of being brutally murdered by the kitty cat. Which, for new viewers, the kitty cat, I'm going to explain this every time. The kitty cat is the creature that Cayman is in, but it looked like a cat at the beginning. It doesn't anymore at all.
Yeah, I think I totally agree that I think it was a really mature decision, and that's one thing about this show. It's a good way to sum it up. It's just mature. This is a very, very mature show, and it treated death and life, frankly, with a lot of tenderness and respect and care. Even when a little creature would die, it had weight to it. And so to see Sam to see Sam sort of go out like that in peace on his own terms, I think it was the right move for his character. And then sort of at that same time in the same episode, we have the reveal that Levi the robot is sort of coming back to life. And it's something that the show has been doing sort of the whole time and continues to do, where it's very much so in balance and in harmony, even when things are discordant, like with Levi becoming more like the planet and the kitty cat becoming more like humanity. Even when stuff is out of whack, it's still balanced out, and
it blurs the lines. It blurs the lines between things a lot.
Yeah, I think a good way to describe the planet, even when it's eating each other, is sort of harmonious, where everything is working as it should. And the planet, we can see it adapting to humanity and the other way around. Just really, really fantastic stuff.
I think the way that I would describe the planet is it felt hostile the more that you resist it. I think...
Yeah, it really felt like how... an exoplanet would treat a human like a virus. This thing's immune system is being fired off. And it it brings a whole new fantasy sci-fi context to the whole concept of nature being completely unbiased. It really pushes that with some sci-fi concepts. I thought that was a very cool way of doing it. And I thought it also blurred the lines very well between how people are one and the same with nature. I thought that was very fascinating. And how humans are also part of the ecosystem. And the writers clearly felt that way about it.
Well, speaking of then, Jacob, we can get into the next episode a little bit here.
Yes.
Specifically with Cayman and the kitty cat. Now, you had a take on this.
Yes. So this...
Yeah, go ahead.
I kind of felt like this is where it was going. It is very much the way that they want to portray the symbiote in Marvel and Spider-Man, particularly with the new game, is kind of have this creature be a metaphor for addiction, a metaphor for substance abuse. And I thought they did an unbelievably good job of that here. It was incredibly mature, and it showed Cayman in this mental battle of he couldn't it wasn't as simple for him as just stop doing it. He couldn't really, that wasn't a justifiable thing to say to him. And I thought that was an incredibly well done way of communicating that.
It seemed it seemed to me like, because I totally agree with sort of the addiction narrative metaphor. It was interesting to me where at first like the kitty cat starts out so like small and affable, and then he just succumbs more and more to it, and eventually by the end he's literally laying in there totally powerless to it, comatose, and the kitty, the addictive behavior and substance is just destroying and hurting things around him, which I thought was very poignant. What do you think, James?
The state of apathy that he was in, the way that you would cut in and you'd see him just kind of resting among this creature's guts, is really what drives home the idea that it is about addiction to me as well. Obviously, some of that initial stuff where he was embracing that like hallucinogenic goo, that was like, okay, that's very addictive, that he is just completely running into it. But I really think it's that state of apathy, especially as it's this relationship, this like parasitic relationship, is a harm to him and those around him, yet he's still just immobile. I think that to me is really where that feeling of addiction is shown pretty literally.
And it was also a harm. We can get into the last episode now. It was also a harm to the creature itself, because we saw at the end it was Cayman. It was almost like an abusive relationship where Cayman and the kitty cat were corrupting and distorting each other, and then it took being exposed by Levi, or I guess the planet itself. It took that grounding and reconnecting to nature and to their place in the world that finally was able to break, and it took something that massive. What do we think about the finale just generally before we get into scores?
So as far as the action goes, I have never had suspense be quite this scary. It felt like Alien to me. It felt like the Xenomorph. Like we saw the DNA in here early, but that was legitimately a very, very good way of building tension. And the way that Liam and I felt about it, since about halfway through the season, when the kitty cat takes a backseat, it felt like a slasher villain being built up, and the characters feel like they were being written like horror characters, where it was just like a no-brainer to you that you thought that the two other guys, the easily dead ones, you know what I'm talking about.
The Scavengers. Yeah,
they're written like characters in a horror movie that are going to get killed by Michael Myers. But then it twists that, and it gives the characters like more meaning, and I thought that was very cool.
Yeah.
I think that two things about the creature made it so uniquely terrifying in that last episode. One of which is just that the way that it moves, it doesn't move like the typical like large predator type creature that you'd expect. I couldn't even tell you how to articulate it.
It calculates. It really
calculates. It was a lot like, if you've seen Spirited Away, we've been talking Ghibli influence throughout this whole series.
Yeah.
But the way it moved and chased and sort of like
talking about
emoted,
the onion spirit?
No, it reminded me a lot of No Face when he gets all big and nasty and he chases Sen around with his big chompers. It reminded me a lot of that. There was a ton of Ghibli throughout this whole thing. There was still a lot of Subnautica.
Dude, there definitely was. There definitely was.
There was also some Avatar with like the planet being like one connected organism with all the flowers. But again, it's kind of something I don't want to get too far into as far as the comparisons, because what makes this show so special to me is just how fresh and unique and creative it is. We saw it with all the creatures, from the new little Bonky
Oh my god, that thing was awesome.
Little Sasquatch guy that showed up for 1 second. Like every creature that shows up on screen, no matter how little, you can tell that there was thought put into it. And then at the end, the very end, with the zinger for
let's touch on the ending.
Season 2.
The ending, yes. So I was under the impression that this was a limited series. I really was, and I did some research. I know, because I'm a little annoyed. Where apparently it's like kind of an inevitability there's going to be a second season. Scavengers Reign has not really been greenlit for season 2. However, in October, the co-creator Joseph Bennett stated that they knew what they wanted to explore in the future, and they said, quote, "We've mapped it out quite a bit." And I think we'll talk more about this in a series review that we're going to do, a season review.
Mm-hmm.
But the ending was so wonderful because this entire show feels so foreign and it feels so obscure. And then somehow at the end, after all these wild concepts and ideas and designs, and it throws this it somehow finds another curveball to throw. I want another season. I didn't even think that was possible.
Absolutely want another season.
Very much want
they
another
throw
season.
in like Warhammer 40K incense,
High priests, like Bioshock.
Space Catholics. Yeah, dude.
Yeah, that's insane.
I'm so down. I'm so down.
To see them
Please,
as they try to
seriously.
purify the planet that we've come to know would be very interesting. And oddly, because let's just last thing to touch on. Yeah, the characters they get stranded. They decide to adapt to life there, and I think
It gave the title a really cool context.
And I think that one thing that really drove home that I mentioned earlier is the idea that this planet is only as hostile as how much like you resist it. So by the end, they are just camping out and actually look like they're kind of being pretty laid back. And so I think it'd be very cool to see a second season, which we can talk more about in the season review, where they're actually defending this planet instead of fleeing from it. I think that could be very cool.
Yeah,
it's
I
definitely.
think,
I think it's definitely a bit of a environmentalist global warming argument in these last couple episodes, and we'll talk more about this in the series review. Where it's like, the more you punish this planet, the more it's punishing the people on it.
I think it's pretty safe to say that Holy Plot is probably sitting on a 10 for this
I'm
batch.
sitting on for the last 3 episodes, I'm sitting on a hard 10 out of 10.
Yeah,
These were the best 3 episodes. 10 and 10.
Easily
Makes
the
the
best.
show. Makes the show.
Fantastic. I don't know what the hell you're doing here if you haven't watched the show. I'm glad you're here, I guess. Hey, subscribe. It's great. If for whatever reason you haven't checked it out and you clicked on here, just watch it, man. Whatever. It was great. 10 out of 10.
Surprise of the year. Surprise of the year. So
Easily
Surprise
surprise
of the year.
Like, if you are
Well, actually,
interested
the Marvels is the surprise of the year. This is second place. Second place.
It's true.
disregard. If you are interested at all in what we have to say and would like to see more of our beautiful faces, please check out our season review. Yeah, I was going to say series review, but it sounds like it might be a season review, which is great. But go check it out. Like, comment, subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. We will see you next time. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.